Tonight, in Los Angeles, the city that invented beach culture is poisoning its own coastline. Every year, over 50 million visitors come to LA County beaches. They lay out towels on the sand. They wade into the surf. They have no idea that the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health regularly posts warnings telling swimmers to stay out of the water. Not because of sharks, not because of riptides, because of what is coming out of the storm drains. But here is where it gets interesting. Los Angeles is not drowning in pollution because its infrastructure failed. Los Angeles is drowning in pollution because its infrastructure works exactly as designed. The Los Angeles County Flood Control District operates one of the largest drainage systems on the planet. We are talking about 2,919 miles of underground storm drains, 487 miles of open channels, 14 major dams, more than 80 pump stations. The system was authorized after a catastrophic flood in 1938 killed 100 people and destroyed 5,600 buildings in a single week. The message was clear. Either humans would control the water, or the water would wash everything away. For decades, the system worked. Developers paved over the floodplains. Neighborhoods rose on land that used to be swamp. Los Angeles became one of the most valuable real estate markets on Earth. Engineers had conquered nature. There is just one problem. Those storm drains were never designed to filter anything. They were designed to move water from mountains to ocean as fast as physically possible. And every single day, even when it does not rain, 100 million gallons of contaminated runoff flows through that system and dumps straight into the Pacific, completely unfiltered. That is enough polluted water to fill the Rose Bowl every single day. On rainy days, the flow can surge to 10 billion gallons. The water carries 4.5 million pounds of trash per year through the LA River alone. It carries motor oil from parking lots, pesticides from lawns, bacteria from the 75,000 homeless people living near the waterways. It carries chemicals that were banned decades ago but still show up in tissue samples from sea lions. What is happening in Los Angeles is not a trash problem. It is not a homeless problem. It is not even a climate problem, though climate is making everything worse. It is a story about what happens when you build a city on the promise of paradise and design that city to flush its sins directly into the ocean. Here is a claim that used to be impressive. Los Angeles built one of the largest flood control systems in the world to tame a river that kept trying to destroy the city. The Los Angeles River does not look like much today. For most of the year, it is a thin ribbon of water trickling down a concrete channel, the kind of place where filmmakers shoot car chase scenes and teenagers tag graffiti on the sloped walls. But that concrete exists because the river used to be a killer. Before the channel was built, the Los Angeles River wandered freely across the basin. It had no fixed course. After heavy rains, it would swell from a trickle into a raging torrent, carving new paths through the floodplain, turning entire neighborhoods into lakes. The river flooded in 1815 and washed away the original Pueblo de Los Angeles. It flooded again in 1861 and created inland seas that stretched for miles. It flooded in 1914 and caused $10 million in damage, prompting the formation of the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. But the flood that changed everything came in 1938. Between February 27th and March 3rd of that year, two Pacific storms slammed into Southern California, back to back. The San Gabriel Mountains received 32 inches of rain in 5 days, more than their average yearly total. Downtown Los Angeles got more than 10 inches. The rivers exploded. Water surged out of the canyons carrying mud, boulders, and entire trees. The Los Angeles River burst its banks in a dozen places. The San Fernando Valley went underwater. Bridges collapsed. Railroad lines vanished beneath the current. In Long Beach, a pedestrian bridge gave way and swept 10 people into the torrent. By the time the storms ended, somewhere between 113 and 115 people were dead. Over 5,600 homes and businesses had been destroyed. Another 1,500 were damaged. Property losses hit $78 million, which translates to $1.7 billion in today's money. 1/3 of Los Angeles County was flooded. The public had seen enough. The demand for action was immediate and overwhelming. Within months, construction crews descended on the river. The project was authorized under the Flood Control Act, funded by the federal government and supervised by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. The mission was simple: tame the river, protect the city, make the land safe for development. Over the next 20 years, workers moved 20 million cubic yards of earth. They poured 2 million cubic yards of concrete. They laid nearly 150,000 pounds of reinforced steel. They lowered and widened the channel, then sealed the banks and riverbed in a continuous concrete shell that stretched 51 miles from the San Fernando Valley to Long Beach. By 1960, the Los Angeles River had been transformed from a meandering natural waterway into what engineers called a flood control channel. It remains the largest public works project west of the Mississippi. The concrete did exactly what city leaders wanted it to do. When record rains hit in 1969, the system held. When massive storms returned in 1980, water rose to within 5 feet of overflowing the gates at Sepulveda Dam and filled 86% of the channel's capacity, but the levees held. Los Angeles had conquered its river. Here is what nobody talks about. The engineers who designed that system made a choice. They built the storm drains to be completely separate from the sewer system. Sewage goes to treatment plants. Stormwater goes straight to the ocean. The separation was intentional. It prevents heavy rains from overwhelming treatment facilities and causing raw sewage backups into homes and streets. But separation means that anything entering a storm drain bypasses treatment entirely. The system was designed for one purpose only: move water off the land as fast as possible. There are no filters. There are no screens. There are no settling ponds or treatment facilities between the city streets and the Pacific Ocean. When the river was wild, floods deposited sediment and pollution across the floodplain, where soil and vegetation filtered contaminants naturally over time. When the river became a concrete chute, that filtration disappeared. Now everything that enters the system exits the system. The engineering triumph that saved Los Angeles from drowning in floodwater created a direct pipeline for drowning the coastline in pollution. The concrete also killed the ecosystem. The native steelhead trout that once spawned in the Los Angeles River disappeared. The last known specimen was caught by a local fisherman in 1940. The Pasadena freshwater shrimp, a species found nowhere else on Earth, went extinct when its habitat was paved over. The wetlands that once lined the river, filtering water and providing habitat for hundreds of species, were buried under development. Los Angeles gained flood protection and trillions of dollars in developable real estate. It lost a living river and any natural defense against the pollution that 10 million people generate every single day. That is the trade the city made, and for decades, almost nobody questioned it. If you want to understand what the flood control system actually does now, forget about floods. Think about highways. The 2,919 miles of underground storm drains and 487 miles of open channels that crisscross Los Angeles County are not just moving water. They are moving everything that water touches. Every street, every parking lot, every rooftop, every sidewalk in the region drains into this system. And whatever is sitting on those surfaces when the water arrives comes along for the ride. Here is the number that matters. Even on days when it does not rain, approximately 100 million gallons of contaminated water and debris flow through the storm drain system. That is enough to fill the Rose Bowl 1.2 times every single day. When it rains, the daily flow can surge to 10 billion gallons. Over the course of a year, more than 100 billion gallons of polluted runoff exit through storm drains into the Pacific Ocean. Over 30 billion gallons of that total pour through just 200 drains into Santa Monica Bay. The system was designed to move water. It has become a conveyor belt for pollution. Consider what happens on any given month in Los Angeles County. According to studies conducted by regional agencies, residents drop cigarette butts on the ground nearly 915,000 times. They drop litter on the ground or toss it out of car windows more than 830,000 times. They allow paper or trash to blow into the street more than 800,000 times. They throw something directly into a gutter or storm drain nearly 280,000 times. They empty car ashtrays into the street more than 40,000 times. They hose leaves or dirt off driveways and sidewalks into the street nearly 420,000 times. They walk dogs without picking up the droppings more than 82,000 times. All of that material ends up in the same place, the storm drains. The Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board documented the trash problem years ago. More than 4.5 million pounds of debris flow through the Los Angeles River watershed every single year. That is over 2,000 tons of garbage, traveling through a system designed to prevent flooding, not to handle waste. The trash ranges from plastic bottles and shopping bags to shopping carts and car parts. Volunteers cleaning the river have pulled out bathtubs, giant styrofoam heads, and enough miscellaneous junk to fill trucks for days. But trash is just the visible pollution. The invisible contamination is worse. When rainwater hits the streets of Los Angeles, it picks up everything that has accumulated since the last storm. Motor oil leaking from cars, antifreeze dripping in parking lots, brake dust settling on asphalt, pesticides and fertilizers sprayed on lawns and gardens, heavy metals deposited by decades of industrial activity, bacteria from pet waste and wildlife. The water mixes with all of it and carries the toxic soup downhill toward the nearest drain. Researchers studying the system have found the chemical signatures of modern urban life at every level. Nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus from fertilizers that promote algae blooms and deplete oxygen in waterways. Bacteria from animal and human waste that make water unsafe for swimming. PCBs and other industrial chemicals that persist in sediment for decades. Pesticides that disrupt reproduction in marine life. And increasingly, PFAS compounds, the so-called forever chemicals found in non-stick cookware and firefighting foam, which accumulate in tissue and have been linked to cancer and immune system damage. One chemical tells the story particularly well. DDT was banned in the United States in 1972. More than 50 years later, scientists at Heal the Bay still find elevated DDT levels in Bologna Creek. The chemical takes so long to break down that it continues poisoning the ecosystem generations after anyone last sprayed it. Studies have documented DDT accumulating in sea lions, causing reproductive problems and even death. The past is still flowing through the present. Now follow the water downstream. The Los Angeles River begins in the western San Fernando Valley and flows 51 miles through 17 cities before reaching the Pacific Ocean at Long Beach. Along the way, it collects runoff from an 834 square mile watershed. 6 smaller tributaries add their loads to the main channel. Every mile, the concentration of pollutants increases. Long Beach sits at the mouth of the river. It is the last city before the ocean, which means it catches everything that flows downstream from everyone else. The numbers are staggering. In an average summer month, city workers pull 60 to 90 tons of debris from the water. When the rainy season starts in September, that number jumps to 1,000 tons per month and stays elevated through April. Between 2020 and 2024, the city collected more than 12,500 tons of trash. The cost was $12.3 million. In the most recent fiscal year alone, Long Beach paid 7 times more for cleanup labor and materials than it did 4 years earlier. The price per ton of trash removed has climbed to roughly $1,000. The city's last line of defense is a trash boom, floating at the mouth of the river just below the Ocean Boulevard Bridge. The boom has been in place for 25 years. It captures about 1,000 tons of debris per year before that debris can drift into the harbor or wash onto beaches. But during heavy rains, the boom often breaks under the force of the current, releasing everything it has collected back into the water. A soda bottle dropped on a curb in Downey can travel the entire length of the river system and end up on Long Beach sand. A shopping cart pushed into a channel in Encino can float downstream and lodge against the boom or slip past it entirely. The upstream cities generate the trash. The downstream cities bear the cost. Residents of Long Beach have complained for years about being treated as the county's dumping ground. Officials point out that their beaches, which earn high marks from Heal the Bay during dry weather, receive failing grades during the rainy season. A 2025 report from the nonprofit found that 14 of 15 monitored sites in Long Beach earned F grades during wet weather. The pollution is not coming from Long Beach. It is coming through Long Beach. The Regional Water Quality Control Board set a goal of zero trash discharge from the Los Angeles River by 2016. That deadline came and went. The goal proved unfeasible despite millions spent by cities across the watershed to install catch basins and improve storm drains. In 2020, the board established a conditional waiver that paused penalties for cities that were not meeting targets. That waiver expired in September 2024. Since 2019, the board has issued 13 notices of violations for trash in the Los Angeles River. It has not sent a single settlement offer, cleanup order, or fine for any of those violations. The cities keep missing targets. The board keeps issuing notices, the trash keeps flowing, and Long Beach keeps paying to clean it up. The trash you can see floating downstream is not what makes people sick. The contamination you cannot see is what closes beaches and sends swimmers to the hospital. The Los Angeles County Department of Public Health operates a recreational waters program that collects ocean water samples every Monday at 40 sites stretching from the Ventura County border down to south of the Redondo Beach Pier. Laboratory technicians analyze those samples for 3 types of indicator bacteria: total coliform, E. coli, Enterococcus. When levels exceed state standards, warning signs go up on the sand. Here is what those bacteria indicate: the presence of fecal contamination. When fecal indicator bacteria levels are high, it means the water likely contains pathogens that can make humans sick. Viruses, protozoa, other bacteria that cause disease. The indicator organisms themselves do not usually cause illness. They are a signal that something worse is probably present. The health risks are well documented. A study conducted by the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Project found that swimming in ocean water near storm drain outlets significantly increases the risk of viral infections, earaches, sinus problems, fever, flu symptoms, and skin rashes. The risk of contracting hepatitis rises. Gastroenteritis, the most common illness from contaminated water, typically comes from swallowing polluted surf. People do not have to drink the water intentionally. A single wipeout can force enough bacteria into sinuses and stomachs to trigger infection. The danger zone extends roughly 400 yards from any flowing storm drain outlet. That is more than 4 football fields in every direction from the pipe. On days when multiple drains are flowing, the contaminated zones overlap and merge, creating large stretches of coastline where swimming becomes a health gamble. During 2002, bacteria levels at Los Angeles County beaches exceeded state water quality standards so frequently that officials posted 269 warnings across the season. Those warnings covered a total of 1,181 days when the ocean was officially too polluted for human use. Heal the Bay's annual beach report card for that period gave 56% of monitored beaches a failing grade during wet weather. Failing meant conditions were hazardous to human health and would likely cause adverse effects for anyone who entered the water. The situation has not improved in the decades since. As recently as June 2025, the Department of Public Health issued warnings for 7 beaches simultaneously: Ramirez Creek at Paradise Cove, the Bel Air Bay Club at Will Rogers State Beach, Mother's Beach in Marina del Rey, the Windward Storm Drain at Venice Beach, Castle Rock Storm Drain at Topanga County Beach, Santa Monica Pier, Inner Cabrillo Beach in San Pedro, All 7 locations were flagged for bacteria levels exceeding safe limits. Swimmers were advised to avoid the water entirely. Santa Monica Pier deserves special attention. It consistently ranks among the most polluted beach sites in the state. In Heal the Bay's Beach Bummer List, which identifies the worst performing beaches based on bacteria levels, Santa Monica Pier has tied for last place with sites at the Tijuana border in Mexico. The pier attracts millions of visitors every year. Most have no idea they are swimming next to one of the most contaminated discharge points on the California coast. The county posts warning signs when testing reveals elevated bacteria, but the signs are not always visible or comprehensive. A 2023 investigation found that some heavily trafficked beaches had only one warning sign for the entire stretch of sand, easily missed by visitors who were already set up 50 yards away. Many polluted areas identified by the Department of Public Health have no public signs at all. The recommendation to avoid water within 100 yards of affected locations means little when those boundaries are not clearly marked. There is also a standing rain advisory that applies every single time it rains in Los Angeles County. The advisory recommends avoiding contact with ocean water for 72 hours after rainfall ends. 3 full days. The logic is straightforward. Storm runoff flushes accumulated pollution from city streets through the drain system and into the ocean. Bacteria levels spike immediately after storms and can remain elevated for days as the contaminated water disperses through the surf zone. The problem is that visitors do not always know it rained. Los Angeles covers a massive geographic area. It can pour in the San Fernando Valley while skies stay clear at the beach. Tourists arriving from out of state have no idea that a storm 3 days earlier and 20 miles away is still affecting the water they are about to swim in. Now consider the sources of bacterial contamination beyond ordinary urban runoff. Los Angeles County has one of the largest homeless populations in the nation. The most recent count put the number at over 75,000 people, with the majority living unsheltered on streets, in parks, in vehicles, and along waterways. Hundreds of homeless individuals camp within the Los Angeles River Channel itself. Thousands more live in encampments along the banks and tributaries. The connection between homelessness and water contamination is politically sensitive, but the data suggests a relationship. Testing of the Los Angeles River, San Gabriel River, and Ventura River estuary has shown significant impacts in some areas due to homeless encampments, according to the executive officer of the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board. The impacts manifest in elevated bacteria levels, particularly during dry weather when other runoff sources are minimal. The mechanism is straightforward. People living without access to toilets must relieve themselves somewhere. Many encampments lack portable restrooms. Human waste ends up on the ground near waterways, where it enters the drainage system during the next rain or washes directly into channels. Some individuals use the river itself for bathing and washing, adding bacteria to water that eventually reaches the ocean. Illegally parked RVs create a related problem. Many recreational vehicles occupied by homeless individuals are no longer operable, which means they cannot drive to authorized dumping stations. If occupants drain blackwater tanks directly into storm drains, that sewage flows untreated to the ocean. The presence of so many RVs may explain why beach contamination remains elevated even during dry summer months when urban runoff is minimal. The storm drains designed to carry only rainwater have effectively become sewage lines. Traditional sewage infrastructure failures add to the bacterial load. In a single week in June 2023, 3 separate sewage spills occurred across the region. Approximately 50,000 gallons of sewage spilled into the Alhambra Wash and prompted beach closures in Long Beach. Around 30,000 gallons of raw sewage reached waters near Lunada Bay in Palos Verdes estates. Between 5,000 and 6,000 gallons of untreated sewage contaminated Malibu Lagoon State Beach and Surfrider Beach, which remained closed for weeks. These spills happen because infrastructure ages and fails. A malfunction in Downey caused a blockage that sent sewage overflowing into a storm channel that connects to the Los Angeles River. The problem started 15 miles from the beach and ended with swimmers being warned to stay out of the water. The cumulative effect of all these sources creates an ecosystem under constant assault. Heavy metals suppress immune systems in marine life. Pesticides disrupt reproduction. Excess nutrients trigger algae blooms that deplete oxygen and suffocate fish. Bacteria make the water unsafe for humans who want to enjoy what is supposed to be one of the defining amenities of Southern California. The beaches that draw 50 million visitors a year have become a public health lottery. Swim on the wrong day, in the wrong spot, and you might spend the next week fighting an infection. The warning signs are posted, but the fundamental problem remains. The same drains that protect the city from floods deliver the city's waste to the shore. If you're still here, you now understand why the Department of Public Health tells swimmers to stay out of the water for 72 hours after every rainstorm. Comment 2 below if you're following this investigation, and if you haven't subscribed, please kindly do so and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss what comes next. Your support helps us keep exposing the infrastructure failures that officials would rather not talk about. Now let's talk about what it would actually cost to fix this problem and why Los Angeles is 60 years away from clean water. You can report clogged drains and illegal dumping by calling 311. You can support stricter enforcement by contacting your county commissioner. You can vote for candidates who understand that infrastructure is not optional, but understand what you are fighting. Scientists know how to fix this problem. Tampa Bay faced a similar crisis in the 1980s. Pollution had choked the water. Algae covered the surface. The ecosystem was collapsing. But Tampa created a multi-agency management board with real authority. They set measurable targets. They invested in treatment. They enforced the rules. 40 years later, Tampa Bay has recovered. Los Angeles has no equivalent structure. There is no unified authority overseeing the watershed. The county has a task force. The cities have their own departments. The state has the Regional Water Quality Control Board. But nobody has the power to force coordination across 88 municipalities. Recommendations get written. Implementation stalls. Deadlines pass. The pollution keeps flowing. The cost of compliance is $20 billion. Measure W provides $300 million per year. At current rates, Los Angeles County will meet its clean water goals in 2082. That is not a typo. 60 years from now, 3 generations away. Los Angeles built a $4 trillion real estate market on the promise of beach paradise. The same flood control system that made that development possible now pumps 100 billion gallons of contaminated runoff into the ocean every year. The engineering marvel that conquered the river created a pipeline that poisons the coast. The drains do not care about property values. The bacteria do not read tourism brochures. And eventually, the pollution always finds its way to shore.